We begin the Gemara today at the bottom of Daf Mem Zayin Amud Beis, towards the bottom, about 15-20 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where it says Neme Ketanoi. The first word on the line is Kanoi. So the Gemara is continuing the discussion regarding a Mekadesh b'milveh. Rav said the halacha, if you Mekadesh a woman with a loan, with money that you lent her, and now you tell her, I'm being Meichel that Chayiv, you can keep the money I lent you, and with that you should be Mukadeshes. So Rav says the Kidushin does not take effect. You're not actually giving her anything now. The money you gave her is hers to spend. Loitza nitna. So there's no Kiddushin here. This Gemara says, Neime ketanoi, shall we say that this halacha is a machlokes tanoim here in this braisa. Hiskachuli b'shtar chayv. A person says to a woman, you should be mukadeshes to me with this shtar chayv, a shtar of a loan. Or he had a loan that others owed him. Someone owed this man money, and vihirsha aleim, and he gives her over the rights to collect that money from that other person that owes him money. Rav Meir says that she will be mukadeshes through this. Chachamim oimrim eina mukadeshes, and Chachamim says no, she's not mukadeshes. Okay, so the Gemara now wants to understand what's the first case this Brisa said. Shtar chayv. Hi shtar chayv heichidami. When the first case the Brisa says he was Mekadesher with a shtar chayv, what is that talking about? Does this mean that he gave her a document of a loan that others owe him, this man money? That's the exact same thing as the second case it said, that there were others that owed this man money and he's Mekadesher here with the rights to collect that loan. What's the difference? Don't you think that the pshat is as follows? Shtar chayv dida. That the first case in the Brisa, when it says shtar chayv, this is money that she owes him. It's a shtar chayv that he owes her. And the argument between Rav Meir and the Chachamim is whether he can mekadesh her with that loan, and this point that Rav said, whether this Kidushin takes effect with this loan that he lent her. So we have here a machlekes tanoim about it. So the Gemara answers, no, that's not the pshat. La'olam shtar chayv da'acherim. Really, even when it says here shtar chayiv, it's not talking about the shtar chayiv that he has from money that she owes him. Rather, it's a shtar chayiv that others owe him, and that's different than a chayiv that she owes him. Here, Taisus explains. Taisus asks, can't you ask the question if you can't be mekadesher with money that she owes him because he's not giving her anything right now? So if he's being mekadesher with a chayiv that others owe him, this man, he's not giving her anything right now either. So Taisa says, no, that's not true. Because the reason why a Mekadesh b'milveh is not Mukadeshes is because there's no Dover Chodosh. There's nothing new that she's getting right now. That's by a loan. By a loan, she had the money to spend already in her possession. The fact that it's being Meichel is not considered to be a Dover Chodosh. When he gives her, though, when he says, I'm being Mekadesh with a Shtar Chay, which is a loan that others owe this man, and now she gets the right to collect that, that's a Dover Chodosh. That's completely new, that she never had a connection to it, and that's a Kidushin. That's the point of the Gemara's answer. That's Taisus' pshat here. So now the question was, why does the Brisa have to repeat itself? The argument between Rav Meir and the Chachamim is regarding a loan that someone else lent this man, and he wants to be Mekadesher with it, and there is this machlokes regarding this loan when it's a milva in a shtar, in a document, and there's this machlokes when it's a milva al peh, when it's a loan which is without a document. And as Gemara will spell out of here and explain how the machlokes applies when there is a shtar to this loan, and what this machlokes is when there's no shtar to this loan. There's actually going to be a number of pshatim in the Gemara. I think about 3 or maybe 4 pshatim in the Gemara regarding the milva b'shtar, what exactly the machlokes here is. Gemara explains, b'shtar b'mai pligi, when this is a loan in a shtar, and he wants to be mekadesher now with this loan that someone else owes him money with this shtar. What's the argument? It says the Gemara, the first pshat, v'plukte the Rebbe v'Rabbanan kamifligi. The argument is the same argument between Rebbe and the Rabbanan, which argue, how do you sell such a document? If you have a document of a loan and you want to sell it to someone else, what's a proper kinyan for this? The Tanya, we learned in Braisa as follows. Oisius niknois b'mesire divrei Rebbe. Rebbe says you have oisius, you have letters, words that are written in a shtar that somebody owes you money, and you want to sell this shtar to someone else. How do you sell it? B'mesire. You just give it over to the other person. You don't have to make any additional kinyan. just by giving over this very document itself, that is the kinyan. You don't have to write another shtar on this, that I'm selling you here, this shtar that has in it this loan that someone owes me money. You just give over this document itself, that is the kinyan, because now the buyer receives this shtar that has in it all the information that says that he cannot collect this loan. Divrei Rebbe, that's what Rebbe says, just the Mesira alone. The Chachamim say no, Ben Shekosav, whether he wrote a shtar to the buyer that I'm selling you this shtar, that the shtar of a loan, v'loy mosar, but he never gave over the actual shtar of the loan to the buyer. Or on the other hand, ben shemasa, whether he gave over this document of the loan to the buyer, but v'loy kosav, he didn't write another shtar as a kinyan that he's selling it. Loikana, he's not going to be, the buyer is not kind of the shtar. You must give over this shtar of the loan itself, and also additionally write a shtar, another shtar, for the sale to take effect. Okay, so now what the Gemara is saying is that over here, that's the machlokes. Here, he gave her this shtar chayiv, and that's it. Mesira. He gave her over this shtar of this loan, and he didn't additionally write another shtar that he's selling it to her. Samar Islay the Rebbe. Rab Meir agrees to what Rebbe says, and therefore he says that she acquired this shtar, and she's mekadeshes with it. Omar Leslay the Rebbe. And the Chachamim disagree with Rebbe. The Chachamim say you must additionally write another shtar that it should take effect, and she never acquired it. So she's not mukadeshes. That's one pshat. V'yibay say another pshat regarding this shtar chayiv, and this all relates specifically to a shtar. Was this an effective kinyan when he gave her over this shtar for the Kidushin? The kulam leslu the Rebbe. We can really say that everybody disagrees with Rebbe. Everybody holds it's not enough to just give over the shtar itself of the loan. You have to additionally write another shtar that you're selling it and you're giving it over to this person. And now the argument over here is whether there's another condition, which is what Rav Papa said. Rav Papa said, when you sell a document of a loan to your friend, and you have to write another shtar for this. You have to write another shtar of a sale that you're selling it. You have to write into that shtar very clearly, I'm selling you here this document, but it's not just the physical paper and the words on it, but it's for chol shibude. You have to spell out clearly that the shibud, the paper is not just the paper, it's the fact that now you have the rights, and there's a shibud, there's a lien that you can go and collect from the properties of this loive, that's what you're selling. You have to spell that out. So Mar is laid Rav Papa. The Chachamim hold like Rav Papa, and therefore here the case is, the man was Mekadesh Yisrael with the shtar, and he gave her the shtar. He even wrote another shtar of a sale for it, but he didn't write those words that Rav Papa said, V'chol Shibudei. So therefore, if you hold like Rav Papa, the sale didn't take effect. So there's no Kidushin. Omar less than Rav Papa. Rav Meir doesn't hold like Rav Papa, and therefore even without writing that, the sale takes effect, and she could be Mukadeshes. Another pshat, a third pshat, the Gemara says, V'bay Seim the Kulam is Rav Papa. Everybody agrees to what Rav Papa says. You have to spell out clearly that you're selling it, and you're selling the shibud of this shtar. But here there's another detail. The argument of Rav Meir and the Chachamim is regarding what Shmuel said. Shmuel said, if you sell a document of a loan to your friend, and then the seller, which is the original lender, was Meichel, he forgave this loan. So now the buyer got this loan, and he has nothing in his hands. He can't collect anything because the original lender was Meichel, the whole entire chayiv. Machel. Even after he sold it, he can be Meichel this, and the Lekeich will have nothing in his hands. And Vafila Yerish Meichel. Not only the original lender himself could be Meichel, but even his son, if he passed away, and his son, a Yerish, was Meichel this, after the Yerish sold it to someone else, it's going to be Machel. He can be Meichel this. He sold it, he sold the ownership of it, but even after you sell it, because you're the original lender, you still have the ability to be Meichel this shtar chayiv, this whole loan. So now, says the Gemara, that's the machlokes here. The Mar Islay the Shmuel. So the Chachamim agreed to what Shmuel said. So therefore, when the woman gets this shtar chayiv, she's not relying on this as a Kidushin, because she knows this man can be Meichel this money that there isn't this to collect any time. Omar Leslay the Shmuel, and Rab Meir does not agree to Shmuel. Rab Meir says that once he sold this loan, this document, so you can't be Meichel. You sold it already. It's out of your possession to be Meichel. And therefore she will be Mukadeshes by getting this loan, this document. Fourth way the Gemara explains this machlokes, this is the final way to explain this part of the Braisa regarding the shtar chayiv. Or we could say the kulal meslu the Shmuel. Everybody agrees to what Shmuel said, that even after the lender sells this shtar chayiv, he could be Meichel the chayiv. V'hacha, over here, the argument is specifically be'isha kamiflagi, regarding a woman, regarding now this woman that he was mekadesh, she becomes his wife. Mar Savar, so Rab Meir holds, Isha Samcha Daita. This woman relies on this, that he will not, the husband now, will not be Meichel this Chayv. Because Meima Amra, she says to herself, Leishavik Leili Didi, why should he leave go from this loan that I could collect? Or Machale Lachrini, he'll be Meichel to someone else. I'm his wife now. If I collect this loan, where's this money going to? It's going to the husband. Why would he be Meichel this loan for another person? So she's not concerned that he might be meichelit, so therefore she's saimich on this Kidushin and she's mekadeshes. But Amar Savar, however, Chachamim say that even in this case, the very fact that the husband has the ability to be meichel, Isha Nami Le'Samcha Daita B'Milva. Isha Nami Le'Samcha Daita. A woman does not rely on this, and she thinks it's still possible my husband might be meichel the chayv for this individual. There's a certain business deal that he'll feel he has to be meichel the chayv. He might be meichel and she'll end up with nothing. And therefore, there's no Kidushin there. This is all an explanation of the first case of the Braisa regarding a milva b'shtar, the machlokes of Rav Meir and the Chachamim if she's mekadeshes or not. Now the next case of the Braisa was also a loan that someone owes this man money, but it's b'milva al peh. And when over here this is without any document, and here he's being mekadesh her by giving her the rights to collect this loan. V'mai pligi. What's the argument over here in this case, whether she would be mekadeshes with this or not? Says the Gemara, this is another point. But the Rav Huna Amarav. This is an argument regarding what Rav Huna Amarav said, and we learned this in the Gemara in Gittin. Rav Huna Amarav, monali biyotcha. If a person owes someone money, and he says, Taneyu leplaini. So he says to the borrower, instead of paying me, pay it to someone else. Basically, he's giving over the rights of the loan that someone else should be able to collect it. Now, if the person is saying this in the presence of three people, kana, by declaring this in the presence of three people, telling the borrower, the malva, the lender tells the borrower in the presence of three people, give over this loan, you pay it to someone else, that other person acquires now the rights to collect this loan from the borrower. That's how halacha of Ma'imit Shloshtan. Ashir says, this is the Gemara in Gittin that says that this halacha of Ma'imit Shloshtan is a chiddush Chachamim instituted. It's without any kinyan, and it's like a hilchasa b'loy time. There's nothing really to hold on to explain how this takes effect. Chachamim instituted that it takes effect. The reason Chachamim did this is because in business deals and transactions, sometimes Chachamim wanted that a kinyan should take effect without any actual kinyan, just to make things easier for situations to be arranged with loans and money transfers and so on. So now, that was the halacha that Rav said. But now, what's the machlokes here between the Chachamim and Rav Meir about this? The Brais was speaking about such a case regarding a loan. Now, Mar Sovar. So here, the Chachamim hold, Ki Ka'amar Rav, when Rav said that this concept works, that if you declare this in front of three people, so it gets transferred to someone else, Hanamili bi Pekadon. That was only said regarding a pekadon, not regarding a loan. A pekadon is an actual object that's here, being kept in this person's possession. So Rashi says, since that's something which is here, we know what the object is. So for this, so there's a smichas das. You know that it's here, and this is what you're getting. So when you declare this in front of three people, so it takes effect, even without a kinyan. So therefore, over here, this is what happens. So over here, we're talking about by this. When he was Mekadesher with this milva al peh, it means he declared this to her in front of three people. But according to the Chachamim, that only works for a pekadon. But since over here it's a loan, avol milva loy, regarding a loan, declaring this does not take effect because the money of a loan is not present here, b'chlal. It's money that was spent. So over here, this takanas Chachamim does not work. So she's not Mekadeshes. However, Rab Meir, loishno milva, loishno pekadon, makes no difference if it's a loan or it's a pekadon. This takana of Rav or the Chachamim that Ma'imit Shloshtan you declare in front of three, you're kainit, takes effect here as well, and she's kainit this loan, or should be mukadeshes. That's the explanation of this brayso.
My question is that the three people that were involved.
No. Ma'imit Shloshtan has to be in front of three people. Yeah, the Gemara didn't get them. We learned this. Okay, let's go to the next brayso. Sagt the Gemara, Neime ketanoi. Let's say here we have another brayse, which is a machlokes tanoim. This machlokes of what Rav said, hamakadesh b'milveh. If she's mekadeshes or not, here in this brayse it seems like it's a machlokes tanoim. The brayse says, he says to a woman, "Iskatcheli b'shtar." She should be mekadeshes to me with this document. Now it's not clear what kind of a document we're talking about, But the Gemara in a moment will try to say that we're talking about a document of a loan that she owed him money. Rab Meir Rama, She's not Mukadeshes. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Mukadeshes. She is Mukadeshes. Now the Chachamim Oimrim that besides the content of what's written in the document, there's another point here. Shaminas Aniyar, you have to evaluate the actual physical document itself. Im yesh beishav pruta, if it itself has the value of a pruta and he's giving her this document, Mukadeshes, she'll be Mukadeshes with that value. Otherwise, she's not Mukadeshes. So the Gemara explains what kind of a star are we talking about? What's the argument here? Hai star heichidami. Are we talking about a star chayiv that the man has in his possession that someone else owes him money? So you can't say that pshat here, because here this is Rab Meir that's speaking here. In the beginning, Rab Meir says, Eina Mukadeshes. If so, Kashi Rab Meir Rab Meir. It would be a contradiction from what Rab Meir says here, Eina Mukadeshes. And the Braisa we just learned that by star chayiv of achayim, Rab Meir says she is Mukadeshes. So it's not talking about such a kind of a document. Ella b'shtar chayiv dida. We must be talking about a shtar chayiv from her, that she owes this man money. Or b'mikadish b'milva kamiflagi. And they're arguing whether there's Kidushin with a loan, that she owes him money or not. The point that Rav said is right here, Machlokes Tanaim. So my answer is no. Omer Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, kocha b'maya skinon. What are we speaking about over here? Kogoin, shekitsha b'shtar she'ein olavedim. He was Mekadisher with a star, and there's no Edom that signed this document. So here, what's the question? But Rab Meir l'taimei, the argument over here is, and this is an argument that we learned many, many times in Masechta Gittin, and Rab Meir is following his reasoning, his opinion, and that is, the Omar, Rab Meir says, Eidei chasime karti, that a document only has validity if there's signatures in it. And since there are no signatures in this document, so therefore there's no Kiddushin. So the point the Gemara is saying now is, we're not talking b'chalal about a shtar of a loan, any kind of loan. We're talking about a shtar Kiddushin. As we learned in the beginning of the Masechta, one of the ways to be Mekadesh Isha is with a shtar. He writes in the shtar, Rei Mekadeshesli. But there's no Eidim that signed it. So according to Rab Meir, if there's no signatures, so Eina Mekadeshes. The signatures make the validity of the shtar. Rabbi Elazar l'taimei. However, Rabbi Elazar follows his reasoning regarding a get, and the same by a shtar Kiddushin. The Omar, he says, Eidei Mesira Karti. As long as there's Eidim that are there when the man gives the shtar to the woman, those are the Eidim that give the validity to the document, and therefore she is Mekadeshes. Now, what are the Rabbanon saying here? The Chachamim, but Rabbanon misapkalo. Rabbanon have a doubt about this. Ikar Rab Meir, Ikar Rabbi Elazar. Whether Rab Meir is right, you need the Eidim in the shtar, or the Eidim Mesira is good enough. So Hilkov, therefore, Chachamim say is rather Shominus Hanayar, since regarding the question of the validity of the document itself, there's a doubt, so we can evaluate the actual value of the paper itself. Im yesh b'shav pruta, if it has a value of a pruta, then mukadeshes, shall be mukadeshes. And here in our Gemara it says, in lav, if it doesn't have a value, eina mukadeshes, she will not be mukadeshes. But Rashi says to take out these few words, v'im lav eina mukadeshes, because the Gemara just said that according to the Rabbanon, it's a suffix. If it doesn't have the value of a document, of a pruta that is, so then you can't say she's not mukadeshes, it'll be a suffix if she's mukadeshes or not. So the machlokes over here has nothing to do with the halacha of Rav regarding the Kaddish b'molveh. Another pshat the Gemara says, what the machlokes here regarding this star is. Again, we're talking about a star Kiddushin. But the star Kiddushin was written not for the sake of this woman. It wasn't written l'shma. And the argument here in this Braisa, they're arguing about what Rish Lakish said. The boy Rish Lakish asked the Shaila, and we had this earlier in the Masechta, Shtar Edison Shekas V'Shalei Lishma. When you write a Shtar of Edison, which is a Shtar of Kiddushin, and it was written not Lishma, not for the sake of Kiddushin, or not for the sake of this woman. Mahu, what's the halacha? Havaya liyitzia makshinon? Do I compare Havaya, which is the marriage, Kiddushin, to Yitzia, to a Gedushin, to the divorce, and therefore I say, Ma Yitzia bin Lishma, just like when you write a shtar for a get, so it has to be Lishma, as the Torah says, because of law. Af Havaya nami bin Lishma. So too, by a shtar written for marriage, also has to be written Lishma. Or maybe I say, no, Havaya is Lahadodi Makshinan. I compare the different ways of marriage to each other. And therefore what I say is as follows, Ma Havaya de Kesef lo bin Lishma. Just like when you mint the coins that are being used for the marriage, it's not being minted Lishma. Af Havaya de Shtar, so too, the writing of the Shtar, lo bin Lishma, does not have to be written Lishma. That was a Shaila Rish Lakish asked. Now, Basa the Baya, Hada Pashta, after he asked the Shaila, Rish Lakish himself resolved and answered, Yatza, V'haisa, that the Torah says we compare when she leaves to when she gets married. Makish Avaya Liyitzia, we compare the two, and just like the star of a get has to be Lishma, the star of a Kidushin also has to be Lishma. So that's the machlokes now here in the Braisa between Rab Meir and Rab Elazar. Mar Islay the Rish Lakish. Rab Meir holds like Rish Lakish, and therefore, if it wasn't written Lishma, there's no Kiddushin. No, let's say the Rish Lakish. And Rab Elazar doesn't hold like Rab Elazar. And therefore, even if it wasn't written Lishma, she could still be Mekadeshes. It's the second shot. The Gemara brings the third shot, what the star of this Braisa is speaking about. By Seimer, or we could say, the Kulalme, Islu, the Rish Lakish, everybody agrees to what Rish Lakish says, that a star, Kiddushin must be written Lishma. But over here, what are we speaking about? There's another argument about what's required when you write a star for Kiddushin. Shekosvei Lishma, he wrote it for the sake of the Kiddushin, and for the sake of this woman, but Vishaloi Midaita, he wrote it without her consent. And we plucked the Rave, Viravine, Virav Pape, Virav Shravya Kamiflagi. And the argument here is the argument of these Amiroim, which we also learned earlier in the Masechta. The Itmers, we learned earlier, what do they argue about? Kosvei Vishaloi Midaita. The document of the Kiddushin was written for the sake of Kiddushin, but not with her consent at all. Rave, Viravine Amri, Mekadeshes. Rave and Ravina say she will be Mekadeshes. And Rashi here brings, the reason is, we explained earlier in the Masechta, because we compare to a get. By a get, you don't need the consent of the woman to write a get. It's only the man that has to be the one to give the permission and the go-ahead to write the get. She has no opinion, B'chlal, in whether she in the Gedushin. So just like by a get, you don't need her consent. By the Kidushin as well, you write the star, Shalom Midaita, it works. A Papa, but Rav Shravya Amri, however, a Papa and Rav Shravya say, Eina Mukadeshes, if it wasn't written with her consent, she will not be Mukadeshes. And they also actually compare to a get. And they say by the get, you don't need the das of the woman, but you need the das of the husband. And in the case of a get, the husband is the makna. He's selling her back to herself. And therefore, by a Kidushin, where she's selling herself to her husband, you need the das of the woman, similar to a get, where you need the das of the husband. It's always the das of the makne, the one that's selling themselves, giving themselves over. Okay, so therefore, that machlokes is the machlokes here in the Braisa between Rav Meir and Rav Elazar regarding this get that was written Lishma and Shalom Midaita. The Gemara continues, one more case, I think this is the last Braisa that it brings here, to suggest that Neime Kahani Tanoi. Let us say that the machlokes, the halacha of Rav, whether you can be Mekadesh with a loan, that he lent this woman money before, let us say that it's the machlokes of the following Tanoim here in this Braisa. The Tanya, the Braisa says, Asay li shirim nizamim v'tabois. A woman takes gold or silver and she gives it to a man and she tells him, here, you're a craftsman, take this material and make for me a nice bracelet or a ring, a nose ring or a regular ring. Make for me jewelry. And vakadesh ani lach, and for this work that you're doing for me, I would owe you money for this work. So vakadesh ani lach, I'll be mukadeshes to you, and you'll be meichel me that money that I would owe you for this, and that will be the money for the Kiddushin. So kivin sha'asan, as soon as this man made this jewelry for her, Mukadeshes. She's right away Mukadeshes. Divrei Rab Meir, that's what Rab Meir says. The Chachamim say, Eina Mukadeshes at sheyagia mamali yada. She will not be Mukadeshes until the monies reaches her hands. So the Gemara will now explain what this means. What are they arguing about? What exactly has to reach her hands? Hai mamin heichidami. When it says over here that there's an argument whether she's Mukadeshes before the money reaches her hands, or only when the money reaches her hands, which money are we talking about? If you're going to say oisoi mamin, the money over here that we're speaking about is over here, this actual materials, this gold or silver that he gave her to make the jewelry, and Rab Meir is saying that she'll be Mukadeshes as soon as the man made this jewelry for her, before he even gave her back the jewelry, and the Chachamim are saying that she's only Mukadeshes when she receives the jewelry from him. Does that mean that Rab Meir holds a that even if she didn't receive back this jewelry from him, that she'll be Mukadeshes as soon as this man prepared this jewelry? How could she be Mukadeshes? Ela b'mai. Ela b'mai by mekacha. Or you take out the word by b'mai mekacha. How is she going to be Mukadeshes to him? He gave her nothing. She gave him materials to make jewelry. He made the jewelry, but it's still in his possession. What did she get from him? How would she be Mukadeshes according to Rab Meir? Elalav, says the Gemara, don't you think, what are we talking about over here? We're talking about other monies. What are we talking about over here? We're talking about the monies that she has to pay him for the labor, for the work that he did to make this jewelry. Right? And the machlokes over here is, of course, he gave her back this jewelry. This is her materials. He gave it back to her after he finished the job. Mm-hmm. But now she would have to pay him for this whole job that he did. And he's being meichel her that money that she owes him. And it's that money, that this mamin acher, that's what they're arguing about, whether she can be mekadeshes with this other money. Shmami no, says the Gemara, that so if so, from here we can infer and understand that mekadesh b'milva kamiflagi, that they're arguing about this point whether a man can be mekadesh a woman with a loan, with money that she owes him. Now the Gemara explains this is not a typical loan. The fact that she owes him this money for the job that he did, and that now there's a machlokes here whether the man can be mekadesh by being meichel that money, it's not exactly a typical loan. This was really a job that this man did for her, and she owes him money for this job. So therefore the Gemara clarifies another point. The Savri, now at this point in this question, we hold, and we'll explain as follows. The Kula Alma, everybody holds, Yeshno l'schirus mitchila va'at seif. When you hire someone to do a job for you, and he's doing the job, and there's different stages in the job, different, right? Starts the job, continues, another stage, you owe this person that's doing a job for you, every other step that he does, you owe him the money for that. The money you owe, it's not only when the job is done, at the end. Every stage that the person that's doing the job does, you owe the money right then. And you owe the money every stage going along, all the way to the end. If so, v'hava milveh. So if so, now it comes out that she really owes the money to him, not right now at the end when she gets this jewelry back into her possession. She already owes the money to him from the beginning. It combines as he goes along making this for her. So this is now a loan that she owed him. So my love b'hakamiflagi. So if so, the argument here between Rav Meir and the Chachamim is in this point regarding mekadesh a woman with a loan. The Marsav mekadesh b'milveh mekadeshes. Rav Meir says you mekadesh with a loan, she is mekadeshes. Well, Marsav the Chachamim say mekadesh b'milveh ain't mekadeshes because he said achigi mamal yoda. There's no actual money she's getting now. It's all just the loan that she owed him from before, going along when he was preparing the jewelry for her. So the Gemara answers, Loi, we don't have to explain the argument this way. The Kula Alma Mekadesh b'milveh ain't a Mekadeshes. Everybody would agree, Mekadesh with a loan is not a Kedushin. But Vahacha, here the argument between Rav Meir and the Chachamim is regarding this point itself. How do we define the money that you owe for labor, for work, for a job that someone does for you? The argument is about this point itself. When you owe the money, do you owe the money all along the entire time? Every stage of the job you owe the money or not? That's what the argument is about. Reb Meir says, I don't owe the money for the job all along at every stage. When the job is done, when the jewelry is here, and now the husband is giving the jewelry to the woman, it's at that very moment that the chayv begins, that he's sort of lending her the money, and it's at that very moment that he's being meichelit. It's not a loan that she owed already from before, and now he's just being meichel this chayv. Now is when the chayv is nischadish, when he gives it to her, and now he's being meichelit. So he's giving her something real right now. That's the pshat over here. So it's not considered to be a milveh. Exactly. The concept of a milveh is money that he had already lent her from before to spend, and it's hers, and now he wants to be mekadesh with that money, which is her money. He can't be mekadesh with her money. But here, he's giving her right now this jewelry, and by giving it to her, that chayv is being nischadish right now, and right away, he's being meichelit. So therefore, that is a Kidushin. However, the Chachamim say that the money that's owed over here for this job, she owes it already from before. All along, when the job was being done, she owes the money for every stage, and therefore, since this is money that she owes from before, and now the husband is just being meichel, that money that she owes, that's a milvah from before, and she will not be mekadeshes. Now the Gemara is going to suggest another few pshatim over here for this braise. Or if you want, we could say the kul alma. Everybody agrees. Yeshno l'schiris mitchil v'atzayif. Money that you owe for a job, it starts from the beginning, all along, not just now when he gives you the prepared jewelry. And additionally, umekadesh b'milveh ein mekadeshes. Everybody will agree to what Rav said. If you mekadesh with a loan, she's not mekadeshes. So if so, what's the svar over here? Why would Rab Meir say that if you mekadesh over here with this, she would be mekadeshes? Over here, the argument is when a craftsman gets raw materials, and he takes those raw materials and he's given a job to turn it into jewelry. So you just improved these materials and turned it into jewelry. What happens now over here? When you give it back to the person that gave it to you, so how do you view this? Do you say that there's a concept called uman kaine b'shvach keli? What uman kaine b'shvach keli means, first of all, Rashi clarifies this concept only applies not by a person that's hired and is being paid by the time. Just a schir yayim, a person that's hired for hours or days or weeks. We're talking about a person that's called a kablan. He's hired for the job. And he takes this raw materials and he turns it into jewelry. Do you say that this craftsman now, the improvement that there is in this material, because he's the one that improved it, so that aspect of it, the new value that he now gave it by improving it, that belongs to the craftsman. The raw materials, the value of the raw materials belongs to the original owner. But the actual improvement is owned by the uman, by the craftsman that made this. And now, when the uman returns the jewelry to the owner, and he's charging him for what he did, what is he really charging him for? He's not only charging him for the labor, but what he's really charging for is the additional improvement, which doesn't belong to you, b'chlal. It didn't exist before. It belongs to the craftsman. And that's so you're giving this improvement to this man, and that's what you're charging for. That's the concept of uman kaine b'shvach keli. So the Gemara explains. Mar Sava Rab Meir holds uman kaine b'shvach keli. A craftsman has a kinyan, he owns the improvement of this raw material. So therefore over here, when this man gives these raw materials that he now turned into jewelry, and he's giving it now to the woman, he's actually being mekadosh with something real that he owns and is giving her. True, the raw materials were always his, but hers that is, but the actual improvement belongs to him, and that's what he's giving her now, and he's giving it to her free of charge. That's the Kidushin. But Chachamim say no, that she has to pay for the labor, and that work for the labor, it's mitchilavat seif, that's already a loan from the beginning, but he's not giving her anything real. The materials, even after he improved it, it all belongs to her. He's not giving her anything that's not hers, he's just giving her back her materials that's now jewelry. So there's no Kidushin. Another pshat, a third pshat, the Gemara suggests, everybody agrees that a craftsman does not have any kinyan in this improvement of this raw material. And also everybody would agree that the concept of owing for the labor of work of a craftsman starts from the beginning, as he goes along in the work. So therefore this is really a loan here. And everybody also agrees that when you're mekadosh with a loan, there's no Kidushin. So then what is the argument here between the Rab Meir and the Chachamim? Why would the Rab Meir say she's Mekadeshes? The case over here is that he took the raw materials she gave him and he added a jewel to it. So he did add something of his to her and when he gave it to her. So he's giving her back something real, a neifach, a jewel. So if she's adding something real, what's the argument here about this? Shouldn't she for sure be Mekadeshes? Explains the Gemara, the Mar Savar, Milve, Uprute, Daite Aprute. So Rab Meir says, when you're Mekadesh someone, and it's a combination of two things you're giving her a loan that you're being Meichel, which is the labor of the work that he's being Meichel. But you're also additionally giving her a jewel, which in this case is the value of the pruta that you're actually giving her. His main intention is to be mekadesher with the pruta, so she'll be mekadeshes with that additional jewel. However, Chachamim say daite amilve. The main thing over here that's significant to the man is the labor. That's much more valuable, and that's what he's being meichel. That was what his intention was to be mekadesher with, and therefore she will not be mekadeshes because that's just a milve. You can't be mekadesh with a loan. Now, in this last pshat, the Gemara brings, we find that this is something that the Tanoim argued about in a Braisa. The Tanya, we learned in a Braisa. If a man tells a woman, B'schar she'asisi imach, I'm being mekadesh you for a certain job that I already had done for you, and you owe me the money for that job. Ain't a mukadeshes, so she's certainly not mukadeshes, and this is the same like any loan that she owes him money, and it's something that he already did in the past, and she didn't pay up that what she owes him, so she's not mukadeshes. But if he tells her b'schar she'eseh imach, that with the pay that you would have to pay me for a job that I'm going to do for you right now, then mukadeshes, she will be mukadeshes, and the reason is because the Tanakama here holds that the money that she would owe for that job that he's going to do now, when does she owe that money? At basayf. At the end, when the job is done. So there's no loan here. At the point when the job is done, that's when the whole loan begins, and he's granting it to her right away. So he's giving her something new right then. There's no loan, so she'll be mukadeshes. Rav Nosson disagrees, and he says, even if he's telling her that I'm going to do you a job right now, and I'm not going to charge you for this job, so she will not be mukadeshes either, because Rav Nosson holds, like the Svara the Gemara said before, money that you owe for a job is not at the end, not pasayf, it's mitchilavat sayf. She owes that money all along the job being done. So when the job is done, it turns out to be a loan already from the beginning of the process when the job was being done. Definitely, if the man tells the woman that I'm being mekadesh with money that you owe me from a job that was already previously done, so that's just a loan, money that she owed from before, she will not be mekadeshes. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, Be'emes Amru, that in truth it was said, Bein b'schasha sisi, bein b'schasha esi mach, like Rabbi Nosson said, whether he told her, I'm being mekadesh you for the money you owe me for a job that I already did, or a job that I will do, either way, ain't a mekadesha. So in that, he agrees to Rabbi Nosson. But now Rabbi adds, but vim haisif la neifach mishalai mekadeshes. But if he got materials from her to make something out of this, like the case we had before regarding jewelry, and he added a jewel of his own, she will be mukadeshes. So the Gemara says, Bein Tanakame l'Rab Nosson ikibeinayu. The difference between the Tanakame and Rab Nosson, what's the explanation of their machlokes? So that's clear. Schirus, they're arguing about how we define the payment for a job that's done. As the Gemara explained before, is the payment for the job only owed at the end, so it's not a loan, or is it owed throughout the process of the whole job, so it is a loan? That was the argument between Tanakam and Rab Nosson when he's telling you that you should be mekadeshes to me with a job that I'm going to do right now. Bein Rab Nosson and Rab Yehuda HaNasi. What is the difference between Rab Nosson and Rab Yehuda HaNasi? Because Rab Yehuda HaNasi added this point that if the man added a jewel, she'll be mekadeshes. Rab Nosson apparently doesn't say that, so he doesn't hold to that. What are they arguing about? The difference is the point that we said before. Milva upruta. When a man is mekadesh a woman with a loan, and including also a pruta. Marsava milva prute daitia milve. So Rab Nosson holds that the main focus over here that the man wants to be mekadesher with is the loan, and therefore the pruta is insignificant, so she will not be mekadeshes. Marsava, but Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is saying daitia prute. His mind is beikir on this jewel that he added, which is this new pruta he added, and therefore she will be mekadeshes. Let's continue here with the next Mishnah. Another halacha here regarding a person that's mekadesh a woman, and he tells her one thing and it turns out to be something else. Tells her I'm being mekadesh you with a cup of wine. It turns out to be honey, or some kind of a liquid that's made with honey. Or the opposite, he says he's giving her honey and it turns out to be much better than honey, it's wine. Or he says, I'm being mekadesh you with a silver coin. It turns out to be gold. Or he tells her shalzav, it's gold and it turns out to be silver. Or a third case, he tells her, I'm being mekadesh you on the condition that I'm rich. It turns out to be poor. Or the opposite, ani, he says, I'm poor, but he actually turns out to be rich. Either way, she will not be mekadeshes. So as you see here, the chiddush of this Mishnah is that not only if the condition was not fulfilled, when it's something that he said more that he has or that he's giving, and he didn't give her that, but even if he said that he was poor, or he said he's going to give her less, and it turns out he gave her more. Still, if he said that he's being mekadesher with this less, she will not be mekadeshes. But Rab Shimon says, if what he said to her was a mistake, was not true, but it was for the positive, that he's giving her more than he said he's going to give her, mukadeshes. She will be mukadeshes. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in a brayso regarding what the Mishnah said. He tells her, I'm being mekadesh here with this cup. Tani Chodes, and on one brayso it says, Boy u'b'mashe b'toichei. What that means is he's being mekadesh with the cup itself and with its contents. V'tani Yidach, and another brayso we learned, Boy v'loy b'mashe b'toichei. He's being mekadesh just with the cup alone and not with its contents. V'tani Yidach, and a third brayso we learned, B'mashe b'toichei v'loy boy. He's only being mekadesh with its contents and not with the cup itself. So what are these three braysos speaking about? So the Gemara explains, v'loy kashya, it's not a contradiction, it's different things that are inside this cup. Ha b'maya, when it comes to water, so water is not that important at all. So therefore, it's clear that he only meant to be mekadesher with the cup itself, which is probably more valuable than the water. So that's the brayso that it says he's being mekadesher just with the cup. And ha b'chamra. The brisa that says that he's being mekadesh her only with its contents is with wine. Because the wine itself is what's chashuv, and he's giving her to drink the wine, but the cup itself is not important. And ha b'tziyara, when he's telling her that he's being mekadesh, and we say that he's being mekadesh with both the cup and its contents, that's speaking about tziyara. Rashi has two pshat, and one pshat is tziyara is fish brine, which is made to use for a long time, so it's made to be kept in this cup. So he's being mekadesh with the cup and to keep the fish brine in it. Or it refers to oil, yitzar, which is oil, and the oil is also kept for a while inside this cup, so he's being mekadesh with both together. Now the Gemara goes to Rab Shimon's opinion in the Mishnah. Im hitol l'shvach harezim u'kedeshes. Rab Shimon said in the Mishnah that if he told her one thing, but then he ends up giving her even more than that, he ends up giving her gold instead of silver, or he's rich and not poor, so in such a case, she will be u'kedeshes. Frag the Gemara, could we really say that this is what Rab Shimon is saying literally? The less they let Rab Shimon, will Rab Shimon not agree to what we learned in another place? That yayin, v'nim tzachaymitz. So this is regarding a sale. A person is selling wine, and it turns out to be vinegar. Or chaymitz, he says to the buyer, I'm selling you vinegar, and v'nim tzayayin, it turns out to be wine. Shneyem yechaylim lachsabem. The buyer, the seller, they can both retract from the sale because it's a mistamekach tos. It turns out it's not what he said he's selling. So what do we see from that Mishnah? Alma, I see ikke denichale b'chola. There's one individual that is actually more interested in vinegar. He needs vinegar for the ingredients of the food that he's cooking. Veike denichale b'chamra. And there's someone else that needs wine. You can't ever say regarding something that this is better than that. It's all subjective. Every person needs something else. So doesn't Rab Shimon agree to this simple svara? So Hachanami here in our Mishnah as well. One person wants silver, and does not want gold. She has something in a jewelry piece which is missing some silver that she needs there, and it's sorry, I just read that. That's the same line. So it's possible that she wants dafka the silver. How can we say if he gave her the gold that she will not be that she will be mukadeshes because it's more valuable? She doesn't want the gold. So the Gemara here is going to give two interpretations to the Mishnah, and this is not the simple pshat. Rab Shimon could not have meant what he said in the simple sense. So Rav Shimi Barashi, Ashkachte, La Abaye, I found Abaye the Yosef, that he was sitting with Kamaz Lebrei. He was explaining his son the pshat on this Mishnah. And he said as follows, what is our Mishnah talking about? It's a person that actually is not speaking to a woman. He's not being Mekadesh to a woman and saying this condition. In that case, for sure, what he told her is what he has to give her. But here, this is a man that's telling to his shliach, halveini dinner shel kesef v'leich v'kadesh li isha plainis. He's sending a shliach to be mekadesh isha, and he has no money of his own. So he tells here, this shliach, can you lend me a silver coin and go and be mekadesh isha with this? V'halach, the shliach went, v'hilva shel zav, and he used a gold coin. So now he's lending this man that's sending him a gold coin, and he was mekadesh isha with the gold coin. So Mar Sovar Kepede, the Tanakama holds that the husband, the man said over here, he wants dafka a silver coin, and he's particular about that. She will not be mukadeshes. Or Mar Sova Maramakamulai. And Rab Shimon says he wasn't particular about this. He's not speaking directly to the woman, and he's telling her what he's being mekadesh with. He's telling a shliach that give her something to be mekadesh. I don't have money now, give her something. He said silver, but he would be okay with gold as well. So therefore, she'll be mukadeshes. That is the pshat that Abaye said. Now the emissaries, the Rishonim have a big problem with this pshat because it's very difficult to understand. How could you say Maram Akamulai? Because over here it comes out that the shliach is spending more money than what the Mishleach told him to spend. Why should we say he wasn't particular about this? He tells him give silver and he ends up giving gold. The Rashba talks about this barichas over here. Some Rishonim say that this is a very strong question. The Gemara is going to refute this pshat, and the Gemara could have asked this question, but it asks better questions from the language of the Mishnah itself. Let's see. So the Gemara asks on this pshat, Yihachi, if that's what the case of the Mishnah is, it's not even a man speaking to a woman b'chlal. It's a man speaking to his shliach. Yihachi hiskachi li. The Mishnah says that the case here is he's speaking to the woman. He's telling her, be mekadesh to me. It should have said hiskachi loy mi bayalei. It should have said the term hiskachi loy, that there's a shliach speaking to the woman saying that you should be mekadesh to that man. And another question on the lashon of the Mishnah according to this pshat would be hitah lishvach. The Mishnah said that he made a mistake to her, that she told her something wrong for the positive, and it's more valuable than what he told her, but he's not speaking to her. According to Abaye's pshat, hitah ulishvach. The shliach made a mistake for the one that sent him. It's between the shliach and the man, the husband, not the woman b'chlal. That's what the Mishnah should have said. A third thing is nimtza. The Mishnah says we discover later that it's not silver, rather it's gold. May karanami dezavav. It's not something you discover later. This is what the shliach originally gave. He took out of his pocket gold, and that's what he gave to the woman, not silver. What's this language of nimtza? So therefore Rava suggests another pshat, that I and the lion amongst the group, Targimna, explained this Mishnah. Umana, who's the lion? Rab Chia bar Ravin. And they explained that it's also speaking about a shliach, but it's the shliach of the woman. She goes and tells her shliach, say the Kabbalah Kidushin miploini, go receive me a Kidushin from this man, Sha'am Ali. Now this man said to me, Hiskachali bedinner shel kesef, that he's going to give me a dinner of kesef. And v'halach, and he went, v'nosan loi dinner shel zav. And the man gave this shliach for the woman a dinner of zav. It's in this case that Rav Shimon says that she could be Mukadesha. So again, the point there is, if the man would tell the Isha directly in that now I'm giving you gold, or silver, and he gave her gold, she would not be Mukadeshes. But here, so the Isha is telling the Shliach that this man said he would give me this. So here it's not clear if she's particular about this. So Marsava Kepeda, Tanakama says that if she's spelling out this detail to the Shliach, she's not just telling the Shliach, go receive my Kedushin. She's telling him that he told me so and so. She's particular about this. So Marsava, Maramakimiloi, she's just making it easier to know who the man is, that he's going to give you so and so because this is what he told me he's going to give me. But the husband is not telling it to her directly right now, so therefore she could be Mekadeshes, even if it's not exactly that silver, even if it's gold. Now, Omai Nimtza, according to this pshat, what's the pshat? Why does it use in the Mishnah the term of Nimtza? If that's what he gave her right in the beginning, so that's not something that's discovered later. Says the Gemara, the Katsar Bebelisa, because the man gave it to the shliach of the woman, it was wrapped in a handkerchief, and then he delivers it to the Isha, and then the Isha opens up the handkerchief, and she discovers that it's silver, or it's gold rather, and not the silver that he said he's going to give her. So therefore it fits with the lashon of the Mishnah that it's a skachi li to her, to the woman, because we're talking about the shliach of the woman.